Welcome back to the Honest Tree vlog or vlog. I know it's been a while since I posted a video. There's been a number of reasons for that. One reason has been that I just haven't been riding outside. So this is the first outdoor ride I've done in all of 2018. And I've been on the trainer I think for 23 hours straight, which is the longest consecutive amount of trainer work I've ever done. So I've been doing this Swift FTP 10 to 12 week builder, and it's all at FTP so far or below. Um, so that means there's not really any VO2 max, at least not so far. And I've got it set at 285 watts for my FTP. I was lazy, I didn't even actually test myself. Um, I figured that was a good approximation from history as well as what my ride data showed. But anyway, and it's been fine for the workouts, but I've been very curious what this would do. In my mind, I'm like, oh, I'm doing all this training work, I'm getting stronger. Um, I'm getting stronger than these guys that are just outside riding, and I don't think that's the case necessarily, because this is all sub-threshold work, or right at threshold, and I'm not getting in those heavier efforts that are above threshold, and that's what an animated, spirited group ride is. There's a lot of freewheeling and a lot of above threshold efforts. And it was honestly a shock to my system today to do that. So the story of this ride right here is that I was about 15 miles in, and I'm not sure what was going on with my Garmin. I think I had it on the screen where it only shows how much time you've put in, and it's like on the training screen. For me, it's blue, and then you hit like enter, and it goes to the next screen that shows all your data, the time, power, heart rate, etc. So I was trying to push that, and I had gloves on, and then I tried to push it, and it turned my Garmin, and suddenly it flipped completely out, fell onto the ground, just clattering away. Here I am, sort of in the top third of the group, and it was a big group of like 50 guys. And I'm thinking, oh great, yeah, exactly what I need right now. Just be by myself, solo, 15 miles into about a 50-mile ride. And but I'm not going to leave my Garmin, my 520, sitting on the road. So I drifted back, turned around, went back, found my Garmin, then kept going. So I figured maybe I could cut them off, or maybe I would take the shorter route with some of the guys, or who knows what happened. Anyway, I did end up actually catching on before we turned right, or going east, towards the less populated area in the ride. And and we had a terrible wind from the south today. Uh, the estimated wind was supposed to be 15 miles an hour, but it felt like it was even more than that. And there was some severe gusting as well. So it was a really tough wind, and guys in the front were going pretty fast. Guys in the back, some of these guys haven't been riding. This is the first warm weather in a while. We got down to like 14 degrees here in the Dallas area recently. And so there was probably a high variability of fitness in the group, and guys just started peeling off as the pace picked up. And so gaps, closing gaps, uh, way, above threshold efforts, like 400 watts, well over 400 watts. And this was starting to take its toll. And then we had this section where we have to make some turns, and the pavement's wet. I'm on the very back. I'm onto the main group again, and I'm on the very back, and uh, I don't want to take it fast. And of course, because I'm on the very back, there's more of a chance that the guys right next to me are the ones that are going to get gapped, and of course, that's what happened. So finally, after all of that, going back to get my Garmin, getting gapped so many times, and not feeling it, my legs not feeling it, I finally just let the elastic break, and so I didn't stay with the main front group. And that's probably the first time that's happened to me in a long time, but that's how it is sometimes, you know. Uh, some days it's not going to work out. But what this tells me is that my above threshold ability right now is not all that great, and I think it's just a lack of doing it. Now I've listened to like the Trainer Road podcast a lot, and they talk about VO2 max being able to come back really quite quickly. So I've had a little bit of that experience as well, where I felt like I was kind of weak, and then first ride was really tough, but then the second ride's a lot better, and the third ride it's like back to normal. So hopefully that would be the case. Um, the part of the ride you're seeing here, so this is sort of the gruppetto, the guys who didn't do the very full end. There's something called the water tower loop, and we're the guys who didn't actually go around the last water tower loop. And there's a uphill part to that that's a lot of fun, uh, but it's not a lot of fun if you're suffering. And so you can make the ride short if you just skip that. So we're the guys that skipped it. But this was still pretty tough here too, with this really really strong wind. And again, you saw, even though I'm in the small group, I was in the back and we got gapped pretty well, and I had to put in an effort to get back on with the guys who were in the gruppetto. So later on in the ride, they're going to catch up with us, the guys that are in the main fast group, and then I'll finish with them all together. And so that was that. um, Also trying to figure out right now how to keep myself interested on the trainer. It's one thing if you're doing a Zwift race and you can watch the dynamics of the race, you know, you need to pay attention to stay in the pack. But if you're doing a structured individual workout, there's none of that. You don't need to do anything. And you can't, say, catch up to somebody or whatever because you're going the pace that the trainer dictates. The bike, the erg, in the erg mode, where the smart trainer is controlling how much resistance and how much power you put in. So it kind of takes away the fun dynamics of Zwift and makes it something more akin to Trainer Road or Exert. And it's not all that fun from a mental standpoint. So I've been watching TV and doing that kind of stuff and some sports. But then if it's going, you know, if I'm suffering a little bit, I can't even pay attention to what I'm watching. So that's makes it also kind of tough. But the lower efforts aren't much of a problem. I can listen or watch or whatever. So listening to some music and you know, trying to figure out what to listen to, something a little upbeat, and listen to a little bit of Guns N' Roses. You know, they were popular when I was younger, and you know, I don't know if Guns N' Roses has really aged well. I mean, Appetite for Destruction, yes, classic album, great tracks, some great tracks there, but even then you go back and listen and it's like, is this all that great? Um, so along the same lines, you know, for some reason I thought of Megadeth, which I never really listened to when I was younger, but okay, looked up a little bit of Megadeth and went on to Amazon Prime to see if there were some Megadeth albums that were available for free if you have Amazon Prime, and there's two, and they're two of the recent ones, like since 2010. So how good is Megadeth since 2010? I have no idea. I listened to a couple of songs. Kind of meh on those songs. So then I thought, well, you know, why not go for the real thing? Go for Metallica. And again, you know, I had a friend who was a big Metallica fan. I listened to the tracks that were on MTV when I was younger. Whatever's on the radio. I never really got into Metallica. I never bought an album or a tape or whatever. So I probably had listened to the entire, you know, the famous Metallica, the album that actually has the name Metallica, the really big mainstream album. I guess it probably came out the early 90s, like 90, 91, somewhere in there. And so I've been listening to that. I was listening to that the other day on the trainer, and uh, I'm like listening to this song, and it's this song about shapeshifters. And I'm like, what is this? Shapeshifters. Um, and I was just trying to imagine how these guys came up with the decision to write a song about shapeshifters, like how this went. So here they are, Metallica's making probably their best album. Now I know there's going to be some Metallica fans that say no, that's not their best album. That's crap. That's mainstream. The early stuff better, whatever. I get that, but this is their probably their album that most people would say has the most appeal to the broadest segment of people. Might be the height of their certainly was the height of their popularity. I don't know. It might be the height of their musical powers as well. Who am I to say? I don't know the entire Metallica, all their songs, and um, so I'm just wondering, like how this Shapeshifter song came about. And now I don't know who came up with it, if they came up with it together, one of them, but I imagine one of them came up with it, and they're trying to get these songs together. They got some pretty good stuff, Enter Sandman and some other stuff, and Call Me Unforgiven and all that stuff, and they're just trying to come up with some more material for the album. And Lars says to James, what do you got? He's like, I've been thinking about something. A song about shapeshifters. And Lars is like, what are you talking about? What's a shapeshifter? It's like, oh, the shaman people in Native America, and they could change, from an animal to a person and person to animal. Okay, James, yeah. Shapeshifter. Well, let me ask you. Does it have anything about like Satanism in it? Well, no. It's not. Well, could we maybe put in something like about a fallen land? I guess. Yeah, maybe we could do that, fallen land. Okay. Could we maybe, deepen this thing? Make it about the meaning of life? Yeah. Let me see if I can work that in too. Meaning of life. And, okay. Well, is there going to be an animal in it? Well, I haven't thought about what animal or what's like the coolest animal right now. What are the kids like? Wolves? Yeah, wolves. Wolves. Let's have a shapeshifter about who turns into a wolf. Okay. All right, you get to work on that. I'm gonna be working on some riffs and other stuff over here. You work on the shapeshifter song. Now, I don't know. I can't imagine. Like I'm trying to here we are in 2018, and I'm trying to think about shapeshifters and what that meant to like a 15-year-old kid at the time they listened to this album. I mean, was this like cool or stupid or something in between? It's kind of, I think it's kind of a catchy song in a way, for this genre. It's got good drives, some good chord progressions for this thing. But I mean, like, was there somebody saying like just rolling their eyes? You look at like a lot of the lyrics for heavy metal stuff, and it's just kind of dumb. And it's kind of targeted to young males, a feeling of dissatisfaction with life. Heavy metal's never been about life is great and listen to your parents and taking the moment. Uh, it's typically not like that. It's things are bad and no one understands us and that kind of thing. And so I just wonder how like the shapeshifter thing went for those guys. Now I guess this goes to show you when you're on your trainer you have nothing to think about. In fact, I try not to do any thinking. And perhaps in cycling itself, I don't do any thinking. And maybe that's the attraction of it. Um, I think, I heard someone ask if cycling is like meditation. And I would say the answer is no. Now, are there meditative, relaxing qualities to cycling? Yes. But when you're cycling, on the road at least, you have to be paying attention to a million things. Um, and over time, your brain becomes entrained to that, and it's not really super conscious. But you're doing things like monitoring your inner state, your physiology. You're monitoring all kinds of safety issues and factors. Your wheels in front of you, wheels around you, who's next to you, cars turning in front of you, and so forth. All of these factors come into play, and I don't think you can be doing all of that and be in this meditative state. Um, and then when you're on a trainer, you don't have to pay attention to as many things. It's a lot more about your inner physiology, how you're feeling. You can close your eyes, whatever. You can close your eyes, you can do anything. But when you're really going hard, um, it's often about feeling like you're going really hard, at least for me. And it's hard to go, it's hard to feel relaxed. Uh, and that's, I think, a real challenge. So I think one of the challenges I think about, or at least lately on the trainer, is how can I feel more relaxed? How can I get away from thoughts of this is tough, this sucks, when is this over, when is this little, interval over? And how can I get to a different place where I just sort of change the psychology of it? And if I change the psychology of it, can I actually feel better and perform better? So, for example, if I'm doing a 5 minute effort at FTP, which, depending on what's gone on before that, it may be tough, it might not be super tough. If you're doing these kinds of intervals over and over, like you're doing 6 sets of them, at least for me, by the time you get near the end, it's getting pretty tough. In this case, I was doing 5 minute FTP intervals with 3 minute breaks in between. And the 3 minute breaks were at 150 watts, so that would be something like 60% of FTP, or slightly less than that. um, how can I change the psychology where um, I'm telling myself, instead of looking at the clock, counting the seconds, one thing that I do is I break it down into smaller segments of time. Like, okay, you just need to make it 1 more minute, or even less than that, 30 seconds, and just not think about the future, but just in that case, be in the moment, or in small chunks of moments, so I can handle the stress and pain of small chunks of moments, whereas my brain wants to rebel against huge chunks. Um, Planning for the future, it's a good thing, it's also a bad thing. Planning too much for the future makes us not want to actually engage in the things that take us there. Um, and I found that, I've done some workouts where I didn't think I would be able to finish them. They were so hard at the beginning, and one of them was an exert workout. It was called the Hour of Power, and a lot of above threshold efforts, and then you dip down to right around FTP or below, just below FTP. And I thought there was no way I could do this, and ended up actually being able to finish the whole thing. But by breaking it down, um, but can you just do something simpler, like just say, this actually isn't that hard. I don't feel bad. This, I feel good. Um, can you actually just completely change the psychology of it, where you're telling yourself that you feel fine, you're strong. This isn't hard. You've done stronger than this before. Your legs feel okay. You are strong. And I was doing that a little bit the last time I was on the trainer, and it actually helped quite a bit. Uh, I actually felt better and stronger, and instead of getting into this sort of negative frame of mind, I switched it and it's fake it till you make it. Uh, you can tell yourself, and you actually adopt that frame of mind, and it becomes the truth, and that's that's the trick. Um, anyway, first ride out on the road in 2018. So what this tells me is I probably need to spend some more time riding outdoors, or else I need to do workouts that take me above threshold. And again, it depends on what my goals are. One of your goals might be stay on, not get dropped on the group ride that you want to be on, and that can be a goal. Another goal can be do a group ride that uh, you haven't been able to do before because you haven't been strong enough. Some guys' goals are going to be related to racing. Um, race, do well in racing, and I'm not so sure that you have to do these above threshold efforts for racing. You can't just, I think, do sweet spot and below FTP efforts for week after week after week, and then think you can just start racing. That's not the case for sure. I know, like, the trainer road guys talk about a build phase, and then another phase after that. So it's good times. Um, I guess some changes in YouTube recently. They've made it so that smaller channels can't be monetized. And I had actually monetized my channel, I don't know when, I guess last spring, early last spring, just because I guess they told me I could, and I decided why not. And it wasn't like my channel really makes any money. I haven't made enough money to actually cash out any money, but when it was going well, it was about $3 of income per month on this channel. That's a far cry from, say, my friend that he has a different channel. It's for kids, and he gets, I think he said, over 1 million views a day, and that's actually his full-time job now, is YouTube. I don't aspire to that at all. And certainly, I spent way more time and money than $3 a month related to the equipment and computer stuff and programs and the GoPro and everything else related to the YouTube stuff. But more important than that is the time it takes to put the videos together, to upload them, and it's a little, it's a process. I have to spend, it doesn't, I don't spend a ton of time. I'm not like somebody like vegan cyclists, producing really nice videos that take a lot of time. Most of the time I'm just uploading footage of rides, and but that still takes a little bit of time. You have to, probably takes me 30-45 minutes just to move the data from my GoPro to my computer, and then because it's in 4K, it's that makes everything take more time. And actually um, doing, then you have to stitch each GoPro file together, each video file together, because they're each about 9 minutes. And that can take like 8 hours. Now, I'm not obviously sitting at my computer for 8 hours to do that, but I have to set it up, I have to let it run. And then finally, I have to, I go through a process of uploading it to the internet, because they're really big files. They can be like 20 to 30 gigabyte files. And that's a process too. So yeah, I'm not actually sure what I'm doing with this YouTube, and I'm just farting around talking here, just to do something different. Um, and uh, I think it would be fun to do a variety of things, like for example, talk actually on a ride while it's going. But I would need special equipment for that, windproof equipment, and I'm not sure that would be any interesting at all. But I'm not sure any of what I do is interesting, and I certainly don't expect people to think it's interesting. But I also might change some of the stuff I do on my channel, so it's not as much cycling. I mean, I'll focus on cycling because that's a lot of what I do, but I'm also going to put some other stuff that I do from time to time on the channel, just for kicks. There's nothing at stake. If I lose a couple subscribers because they're upset that I put something on my channel, oh well, who cares? But but yeah, cycling is fun. The weather's going to turn warm here in Texas pretty soon. Got over 70 today, like later in the day. It was in the, I guess it was, how cold was it this morning? It was about low 50s. and I got out on the bike and warmed up pretty well. I had to take off my wind vest and take off my arm warmers by the end of the ride. So it was nice weather today, and that's nice, except for the wind. The wind was atrocious. Uh, there were a couple of moments where the 60 millimeters carbon rims. There was one moment where I almost felt my wheel turn as in a crosswind, which is very unusual. I've been using these wheels for a long time. So a big gust hit, who knows, that gust might have been 30 miles an hour. I know my windsurf buddies are out today, been having a good time in the warmer weather with their dry suits and wetsuits, and I used to tell myself that I could bike on the non-windy days and windsurf on the windy days, but windsurfing takes too much time. It's a big hassle. Imagine if, we talk about like the difference between the time it takes to do outdoor rides and indoor rides and that kind of thing, but windsurfing, like getting up, getting to the lake, setting things up, taking things down, we're talking in, hours and hours and hours. So anyway, but that's all I got for today. I might do more of this in the future where I just chit chat about bikes and maybe other things. Some of the things I was talking about today with the psychology of riding is related to techniques that people might use in cognitive behavioral therapy, where people try to change negative thoughts, especially inaccurate negative thoughts. And so sometimes our lives are full of inaccurate thoughts and thoughts that don't serve us well. So if we change them around and work on them, recognize them, we'll actually, in some ways, probably serve ourselves better. Anyway, best of luck to you out there. Keep riding, keep safe, and have a good time. I'll see you later. I caught back on, and I kept getting gapped. These guys got gapped in the back. So I got dropped.
It's hard to yo-yo like that.
Sub-threshold efforts.
Yeah.
Just shot into my system. Bamboo one, that's from like your country. Did you see my one this morning? I caught one. I caught one. Last night, where it comes out. Okay, last night, again I said it. 2 minutes in, and then goes. I want to set it up so the camera's inside the trash can. So you can see it just fall. No, my guess is he might have been there 20 minutes when I looked. He was dead. Cold water, you know. GPS data.
Oh, so yeah.
Let's see if I get a refurb or something.
Have you tried just like a hard reset on it?
No, I can hear something rattling inside it now.